Welcome to the Growth Whisperers, where everything we talk about is building enduring great companies. I'm Brad Giles, and I'm joined today by my co-host, Kevin Lawrence. Welcome, Kevin. How are you doing today?
You know, I'm doing great, Brad. It's the end of the week here, and I'm getting ready for some time off, and I feel some well-deserved time off. So this is my last thing for the week, and I'm feeling pretty damn good about it. And I'm really looking forward to the show today.
Awesome. Well, hopefully we get the cruisy version of Kevin today. So tell me, with the cruisy version, what have we got on today?
Well, we're talking about cookies today, Brad, and Apple's making something special happen with cookies. And no, it's not the kind of cookies you eat, but about how the cookies and how we're being tracked by the different places we visit or the apps that we use, and how they're doing something that, you know, when I heard about it, it's like, I think it's about time. So we're talking about cookies. Yeah. And then we're going to dig into what does it take? We work with a lot of great leaders in the companies we work with, but what does it take to develop and become one of these great leaders who can add real value to a growing firm? And what does it take to stay one of those great leaders and not get left behind with all the growth? So that's what we're digging into today.
Awesome. I'm excited. So let's get into it. So first of all, we're talking about Apple and cookies.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. I like cookies.
Yeah.
But not these kinds of cookies. These kinds of cookies are different.
Yeah. We live in a world. We live in a world where every time you visit a website, that website is probably saving a small file onto your computer. This file contains text, and that text tracks where you're going and where you've been. These things are called cookies for the uninitiated, let's say. But for people who also are uninitiated, what's happening is there is an enormous amount of data that is being collected on everybody, and where they visit in their websites and where they visit physically, there is more data about people. Some of these companies probably know more about a person than their spouse does. They know so much more, and they can even predict what we're doing. And they're kind of using this against us or against our best interests. It can be
they're
claimed.
Using it for like commercial warfare to be able to offer us exactly what we want, ideally at the right time. And it's a huge driver of the effectiveness of marketing engines.
Yeah.
Because they can track our behaviors and what we seem to like based on where we spend time or what we do or what we search for. It allows them to better target. So there is a good side to it that you know, when you get an ad for something that you want, you're more likely to appreciate it and transact. But the idea, like when I had somebody once show me the information they could find out about me just through the technology and what's being tracked, it was unbelievable. And it's almost like you'd rather not know. Like seriously, you'd rather not know. But it's so much more than most people know. It's actually incredible the amount of data and information you're giving up every day when you click the I agree button on those user agreements. It's actually quite shocking. So why don't we explain what Apple is doing? And I'm thrilled to see Apple taking the lead on this, because it's almost like you're taking advantage of the naivety of most of us.
Yeah. So I don't know if people know this, but this is the dirty little secret of the software industry and Silicon Valley. And that is, you know, we see these terms and conditions when we accept a website or an advert, and what's contained in there, not almost everyone doesn't read. And you'd never do that if you bought a car or if you bought a house or you did something like that. But within that, this is where they're collecting the data. On a quick side note, I worked with a company in the US, and they specialized in collecting this data. And I got sort of a behind the curtains view on what was really happening. And they were selling it to people who were going out to try to get people to vote. And they knew the people who are buying this data about people in the US, it was just crazy. The amount of things they knew about households and how to pull people's triggers or press people's buttons to get them when they went on to knock on their door to try to get them to vote for their local candidate. Anyway, so we're circling right back. So what's happened is a few days ago, Apple at their Worldwide Developers Conference announced the release of their latest operating system, iOS 14. Now, within that, one of the things that they've done is they've made an alert occur when you download an app, which basically says the name of this app would like permission to track you across apps and websites owned by other companies. Your data will be used to deliver personalized ads to you. And then it says allow tracking or ask app not to track. The key is this is the first time that they've done it where you could do it before, but it was hidden so deep that no one could find it, right? But now when you're downloading an app or when you are trying to find what you want, the phone is now saying to you, look, we are going to track you. And so it gives this
so in the past
privacy.
In the past it would have been download app.
Yep.
App by default gets permission to see anything that's going on your phone. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but it opens up all the data feeds that it wants access to, that it could get access to by default.
Yeah.
And it's almost like when you have apps that ask and they want to access your camera or your photos, you now give it permission. And now it's going to be another one, which is to give it permission to access your data and to track your every move.
Yeah.
Where before it was sort of by default given that, which is absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. I mean, how it's almost criminal. It's not criminal by breaking a law, but it's unbelievable that we would be giving up all of that information in the past. And yeah, I mean, thanks Apple for trying to do the right thing.
Well, this is a key part of their strategy. They're looking at an open platform as a competitor in Android. And for them, they're saying, well, privacy matters. And it may well be one of their core values, which is fantastic. Privacy matters. How can we be more different than our competition? Privacy. That's what really matters. And yeah, it's more and more. I mean, we remember a year or two ago, there was a case where it was Apple versus the police, and the police wouldn't unlock the phone. Sorry, Apple wouldn't unlock the phone. Yeah. And so they're
taking a stand for the consumer in that case. Yes. Yeah. They're not selling their soul to Big Brother or to big corporation, or small corporate. Yeah. I think it's awesome. And ideally they're going to cut the pathway in it for things to come, because I just don't think it's right. Now, if you want, it's almost like I don't go and sign up to be somebody in an experiment with my health, right? Yeah. You can go and do that. There's people, and I'm grateful for these people who are getting paid now to test new contravirus tests and to be the frontline people who are experimented on. Yeah. And if they're willingly doing that, and again, I appreciate those people for doing it. They're helping lots of other people in the world, and they get compensated for it, and they probably feel good about helping to save lots of people in the world. No problem. But just sort of plucking me out and doing the experiment on me without my permission is not cool. And in many ways, that's what's happening with some of this data privacy is, and yes, you can read the agreement. And yes, there's settings you could find deep in your phone to probably manage it, but most people don't pay attention. And they're basically being treated, I'm exaggerating a little bit, like a lab rat. And they're plugging into their brains and then selling them stuff. And it's so, as a marketer, by the way, I think I appreciate it.
Here's the thing. There's an $80 billion with a B, $80 billion industry hanging off that data. Now, that's shared amongst Apple and Android.
Yes.
But there's an $80 billion industry that's about to get a really tough shock as this comes out.
Exactly. And I can guarantee if I'm on the app side and I want to protect my piece of that 80 billion from this questionable ethics behind how it's being generated, but I'm going to want to protect it. And what I'm curious is what happens with the existing apps? Do I get a chance to now go reauthorize each and every one? I mean, if I'm the app developers, I'm going to be lobbying that all the existing ones are grandfathered and it's only new downloads. But I'm wondering for myself, when I download iOS 14, which I will it then have me to manually authorize each of them that I want to get the data? And yeah, almost like it does with location data or camera access. It'll be interesting to see how it works.
I think that Apple's
I
got
understand
enough
it. But from a
power.
marketer's perspective, from a consumer perspective, I'd be thrilled to not be giving that up. But from a marketer's perspective, I love it because it allows, from a marketer's perspective, I put that hat on. We're not going to use it in an evil way. We're going to use it to target people who likely want what we want to sell.
The other part of it is that what's happening is there's evidence of spend. And so that's been a big thing that's happened with the internet. You go back where, you paid for 20, 30 years ago, you paid for a magazine advert. You had no real evidence that what you had paid for in the advert was connecting to the sale. And that's what the internet did. It connected the sale. So this is going to potentially disrupt that in some way. It's going to mean that whilst it's good for the consumer, absolutely good, it's going to make it harder for people who are paying for adverts to prove, or marketers to prove, that this person purchased this because.
Well, yeah, right. You'll still be able to track, and with the transparency that the digital transaction allows, all of that will still be there, but you might not be able to get down. I don't know. I'm curious because we'll see how it plays out, but it'll make it harder to target some of the right people.
Yeah.
But you'll still be able to prove where it came from, I think.
No, that's the point. So there's a Forbes article. I'm going to read it out in case anyone is interested. Apple just crippled IDFA, sending an 80 billion industry into upheaval. Okay. You can Google that. It's on the Forbes website as well. But this is the thing. This is where we get the 80 billion from. It's the tracking. So it's the cookies that are on the website where you visit a website and then you 5 days later you buy something and there is evidence that they first saw that ad. That's what's
I got that. But when I look from in the companies that we will look at from a marketing perspective, we don't get down into that granularity. The people doing it, I'm sure, do. We get down into what is the channel, what is our cost per click, cost per lead, cost per transaction. Yeah. So we're looking at it at a more macro level, but I'm sure the people doing the work and figure out that for them, that probably enables them to do their job better, having that data. Is that is that your point?
Yeah. Ad targeting. So let's say
targeting
Kevin,
and retargeting.
Yeah, all of that is being challenged.
I got it.
Yeah. So
it's going to be fascinating. Because it's a marketer's dream to know that Brad was buying a white and blue check shirt and he just bought one, or he looked at one and hasn't it's in his cart and he hasn't finalized the transaction. Let's send him a special coupon code to get him to finish that transaction. Yeah. And we might not have some of that data, is what you're saying.
Absolutely. Or Kevin went onto his phone and Googled a new outdoor setting, just looking it up, did the Google search, and then suddenly he's getting Facebook ads appear 3 days later. That's the link in the chain that if you click that, Apple are breaking.
I got it. And the thing about my daughter has a website where she's selling some dog products. And I was talking to her the other day and she's talking about her different collections of dog products. And she mentioned that, I think 28 people had this particular one in their cart that hadn't bought yet. Yeah. And she was thinking about offering them a special promo code to help them to basically to get the sale. Yeah. And from what I'm understanding, that kind of data may not be available if people all switch this off potentially.
Yeah.
So what do we? Let's just kind of to finish off this thought and move on. But what do we do with this as leaders in companies? What do we need to be thinking about in terms of how we can either benefit from this or do something to prevent this becoming an issue?
Well, my response would be, I think it depends on if you are affected by this. If you've got a digital marketing agency, you better put your skates on because running won't be fast enough. Okay.
Right.
If you've got an app, it could be the same kind of thing. Innovation is born of the struggle, and this is going to create a struggle. But ultimately, you've got to give the customer what they want, the consumer what they want.
Yeah.
So if you aren't in those type of areas, and you're not using retargeting in that manner, I guess all I'm thinking is it's going to muddy the waters when it comes to your marketing companies or your marketing team's ability to validate your spend.
Yep. I think it's a great conversation is what is the opportunity and what is the challenge? There will be another opportunity that comes out from this, which we may not see yet. But what is the opportunity? What is the challenge? So as a consumer, I'm just thrilled to have more appropriate, voluntary disclosure of our personal information.
Yeah.
And I think that's just awesome to see. I mean, I'm an Apple fan to start with. I love how they work. I love their devices, and it just feels human. So thanks, Apple, I think. Let's see how this plays out. You never know. Sometimes there's another side. So let's move on and talk about leaders in growing companies. And this is an example of leaders, I think, making some great decisions for their customers.
Yeah.
And knowing who their customer is. But, in the companies we work with, Brad, we talk about leaders all the time. We spend our days hunting for better ones, strengthening the existing ones. But, there's been so many things. Some people say, great leaders are born, which isn't true in my experience. My experience is they are developed and they develop over time. But, let's talk about what do we see that makes and makes people into the great leaders, the ones that we are just so thrilled to work with, the ones we call the A or the A+ players.
Yeah.
Like, what is it that what causes these people to develop into the great leaders that they are? And then we'll talk about how do they stay that way?
Yeah. First, cab off the rank. I'm thinking you've got to want. You've
cab
got to want.
Off the rank.
Yeah.
Can you put that into English, my friend?
Yeah. So you've got a taxi cab rank, and there's 12 cabs in a row.
Yeah.
The first of those is the first cab off the rank.
Oh, nice to know. Thank you for that.
Yeah. And so I don't know, it's just a saying that I picked up as a bad habit somewhere, which is when you're going to list a number of things, instead of saying the first idea I might put to you, my dear friend, you would say first cab off the rank is this. I don't know. It's just a saying.
Interesting. I like it. Cool. Well, thank you for that.
Yeah. So lessons in English, Australian English today. So first idea, my dear friend, is they've got to want to do it. They've got to. So do you want to just be a leader, or do you want to be a great leader? Everything you said in that synopsis just then was a great leader. Do you want to do it? Do you actually want to do it? Do you want to do the difficult things to get there? Because for a lot of people, I think it's okay if they say, I just want to, get paid a bit more. I want to have a business that spits out a bit extra cash so that I can have a little bit better life. And I don't have no ambition. And you know what I want to do? I want to try to find more time to play golf or whatever you're interested in.
I have some great people I know in my world who are like that. They're awesome human beings.
Yeah.
They're not awesome leaders, but they're awesome human beings. They build themselves a nice lifestyle business. Yeah. And it's like they make enough, and their motivation is to be able to do the minimum to make the maximum so they can have a great life. And, they often become, great managers of their cash. But that's different than the person that becomes the great leader. And I agree with you fully. And we've had conversations with some of the leaders I work with, in particularly CEOs, and we've had conversations about, how does this capability grow? Is it intelligence? or is it desire?
Yeah.
And we've gone through and, we never settled the debate. Now, because when you be obsessed with becoming a great leader, you become more and more intelligent as times progress. I'm not talking statistically IQ intelligence, which maybe that enhances, I don't know. But you become, because you're trying so hard and you learn so much.
Yeah.
And you have so much experience and so many data points of things that work and don't work. You definitely become notably more capable, whether it's based on pre-existing brain function or not. I think the jury's out. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think that I think that you've got to want to do it. Number one, there's a pre-existing condition. Like you've got to have enough intelligence to keep up with the people that you're leading. You know, not necessarily to stay ahead. There's a saying which is, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. Okay. Yeah, that's a great saying, and it may be true a great deal of the time. All I'm saying here is you've got to have the intellectual horsepower to maintain rigorous debate and conversations with the people around you if you're the leader. But you definitely learn and grow your intelligence over time. There's no doubt about it. If you left school at 18 years old and you have read nothing and you've attended no learning events, and all you've done is just go to work, you are the same capability in a theoretical context as when you left school. Now, you would have learned social skills and you would have learned things on the job, let's say, but there is a wider world than that. You've got to draw from as wide a area as possible to get there.
I think so. And that is, there's this hunger to learn. Like, as I've thought back and I was talking to someone early in my career, even at the beginning, it's almost like learning was a survival skill. Like myself, I took so much training, so many courses, I did more training and courses earlier on.
Yeah.
And then over time, I've still doing courses, but more books. And learning and then hiring experts. But whatever it is that constant learning is big. I remember, probably all of the most successful founders, CEOs I've worked with, and a few of them have built massive companies, ones that you read about in the big business magazines. And they were all incredible learners. They were sharp people. But the amount that they would read, like almost every book, I have a habit of always bringing people a book for our quarterly meetings. They would always read them and ask questions and want to talk about them. And these are some of the busiest people on the planet and some of the most successful. But that learning and that curiosity is massive, which is the other side of it. The other side of that coin is the executive that thinks they've got it figured out. And really, if you look at it, not reading books and learning is very, very, very egotistical. Because what you're saying is, I got this. Like, I'm good enough as this.
The more you learn, the more you learn that you don't know.
It's crazy, Brad. Like, every time, like I am constantly reminded of my ignorance and the gaps in my knowledge when I learn and read. Like, it's hard on the ego for people that are really ego-based to read something and realize they don't know, and that guy over there, that woman over there is way smarter than I am. And I mean, that happens to me every time. That's why I continue to do it, because my capability increases every single time. But so not learning, not only is it limiting, and it's something that we push insanely hard. Like, if you work with us, you are reading at least 4 books a quarter, and your team is, period. Yeah. It's not open for discussion. And that's like the amateur hour end. That's the basic. Like, that's just keeping afloat. That's not even growing the way I think you should. But there are the people who don't like. Now, by the way, just reading books doesn't make you a better, more effective human. It's not enough.
No, but it gives you more lenses to look through to understand problems. It's rather than just being able to repeat information, it gives you more context in a situation to be able to connect all the dots. So yeah, that's the thing. So I want to just circle a little tiny bit back to what we said then about what makes them, and we said will. So I've said this before on this podcast with you. The arguably the most one of the great leaders of the 20th century, Peter Drucker, he said on his most successful book, on page 1, the job of a leader. Oh my God, I've just forgotten it. The job of a leader is to be effective, and the job of a manager is to be
efficient.
Efficient. Thank you very much.
I'm here for you, buddy.
Yeah. I'll get this out one day. The job of a leader is to be effective, and the job of a manager is to be effective. Thank you. So with that, do you have the will? Do you have the burning desire to figure out how to be effective? And that was, so I wrote a book, and the first sentence of that book was, every leader's challenge is how to be effective. Same word. That's the question. Like, that's the thing. How can I become more effective as a leader?
And do you want to? Because
do you want to? Yes.
Some people don't. Like, I've looked over the years where it's, I love this work we're doing with people, and there's a part of me that loves doing the work, which is almost being more efficient in getting the work done. And then there's leading people that are doing the work, which is more that leadership role. And, a lot of people, I think, actually don't have the right context of what a leader is. Yeah. Everybody seems to, in some of the companies, wants the VP or the SVP or the C-suite title, but they don't realize it's actually a coaching and mentoring job. That's all you pretty well do. Coach, mentor, and lead people. Like, there's one of my favorite quotes about leadership is, the job of a leader is to create leaders. And if you're not leaving a trail of leaders, you are indeed a follower. And many people want the office and the decision-making and the title and the authority. But actually, you are basically, it's a big boy version or a big girl version of parenting.
Yeah.
You're taking these little people and helping them to grow up into more capable young adults. And in leadership, it's the identical dynamic. It's not about making decisions. It's not about doing work. It's about helping to grow people and making yourself obsolete because they're so darn good. But a lot of leaders don't have that in their mind, and I have a chapter and I know you've written this as well, but I have a chapter in this, in my book, Your Oxygen Mask First, and it's called Make Yourself Useless.
Yeah.
The ultimate aspiration of a leader is to not be required to lead, and is making it so that your team is so damn strong and capable and aligned. In theory, you could step away for 6 months, or another effective leader could come in and grab the reins, and they wouldn't miss a beat because you've built a strong, autonomous team and you've developed the hell out of these people.
Yeah.
And either you get a kick out of that or you don't.
Yeah.
And some people don't, which often makes them not effective leaders because they often, in some cases, become managers with the leader's title. And you don't get your way. And the thing about it is, if you want spectacular talent to work with you, you have to create autonomous environments. Badass A players don't want to work under a manager at a high level because managers are still controlling. And go ahead, Brad.
So what's the difference between a manager and a leader as you've just described it?
Yeah. I use visuals, but my visual is a manager is somebody that works very closely with people, holds their hand, does a lot of coaching and training, and they're doing a slice of the thinking for the person as they're learning and getting things figured out. So a manager is like teaching your child how to ride a bike. They're involved. They're holding the seat sometimes. They're running beside you sometimes. They're there with you and helping you to decide where you're going to go next on your bike ride. Like they're actively involved, helping to prioritize, helping to plan, teaching skills, right? Really, We're there with you. Where a leader is almost like if you're teaching your kid to BMX race, right?
Yeah.
You know, the leader would be the leader would be the coach or the parent standing on the side of the BMX track. The kid's doing their practice and stuff, and they're doing it. And then they'll do a little bit of coaching on the sidelines when the kid comes in to take a break. Hey, how did that go? What about this? What might make it better? And they're asking questions and discussing, but there's a great degree of autonomy, and the kid might be good. The kid might say, no, you know, that was good, Dad, or, you know, good, Mom, I'm good. So and they're going to make some suggestions, or they're going to say, hey, you know, you did your lap time and your lap time was 1:30.
Yeah.
What do we got to do to get down to 1:15? You know, how do we do that? Let's, you know, it's less hands-on and more of supporting, coaching, and holding them to a higher standard or stretching them. I don't know if that makes sense. You could probably explain it differently.
It does. So what I heard, which could be completely different to what you said, is that managers help people become more effective, and leaders cultivate people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one is holding a hand there with them, where the other one is giving them way more space. Yeah. And checking in and making sure they're going in the right direction and layering down some challenges. But one is very active. One is, you know, has a more of an autonomous type of relationship.
So whether you're a CEO or a manager or whatever role you're in, if you were to step aside and look at yourself interacting and the way that you're dealing with people, are you trying to make them more efficient, or are you trying to make them more effective, to cultivate them? Like, that's a really interesting self-analysis that people could do. And that could be a manager or a supervisor or a leader, a CEO.
Yeah. The main thing is, as a leader, you're trying to not do much. So your perspective as a leader is that there's this strong autonomous person, just like this microphone here. Here is this amazing person on my team. I am a support on the side to help this person do what they're doing and to build their own amazing team, their own accomplishments, but I'm a support. And I'm a resource and I'm a backup. But it's about them. It's the microphone's show. Whereas a manager, I've got a job to do, and these people are people that I am coordinating to help to get the job done.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm in charge as a manager, whereas a leader, we want them to be in charge, almost more so. And it's almost like a role reversal. And it's like, as a leader, you want people to stand strongly, independently, and not need you. And it's,
So one of the diagrams in my book, geez, this is not an infomercial for those listening, right? We just so
not like that, Brad. We know that. Please feel free to lay it on thick with what it is.
Well, there's a diagram, and you know, an org chart sometimes looks like a triangle. Okay, so you've got a triangle, you've got the leader at the top, and you've got the frontline workers at the bottom. And so again, this was in the book, but on the left-hand side, you have technical skill, and then on the right-hand side, you have personality and leadership skills. So technical skill and it's 4 layers, right? At the very bottom, you've got the worker, then the supervisor, then the manager, then the CEO. Technical skill, worker is 80% technical skill, 20% personality and leadership skills. Go up to the supervisor, it's 70% technical, 30% personality and leadership. Go up to the manager, and then it switches, and then it's 30% technical skill, and it's 70% personality. And then go up to finally the CEO, it's 20% technical skill, and then 80% of the CEO's job is personality and leadership skills.
Yes. And that's why we see some very, very high performing managers who get into leadership roles and they're ineffective because they're still trying to use the old ratios.
Yeah.
And you know, the best CEOs I work with They have strong opinions about a lot of things, but they won't express them. Because as they've said, is that they need, the mantra of a leader is CEO thinking about a leader. Their ears need to hear their mouth say it.
Yeah.
Like if you go and tell these people what to do, which a lot of managers do, particularly the more ineffective ones, too much, they're not going to listen. You're going to go to a senior exec or a VP or an SVP of a company who is exceptionally well compensated for their capabilities, and then go and tell them how to put on their underwear and tie their shoes and place their socks. You know, it ain't going to work. You're not going to get the best out of them. They won't want to work for you. And the leadership skill is to find a way to work with them and challenge them where they go, you know what? I need to learn how to tie my shoes properly. By the way, which is a whole other podcast. Do you know there is a way to tie your shoes where they will never come untied? There is I learned about this 3 years ago. I can look at your shoes and know if you know how to tie your shoes, Brad. I am serious. It drives me crazy on the soccer pitch, you call football, when kids' shoes come untied. And I find there is a technique. There is one way and only one way without double knotting your shoes where they won't ever come untied. Holds true for dress shoes and sport shoes. And almost no one knows this little secret. It might be an important podcast to do in the future.
Well, can you explain that without a visual medium for the people who are listening on the podcast on the audio only version?
It's about knots. And if a knot lines up, there's a way that the knots of the shoes line up that it creates a lock.
Okay.
And the way you know it, so by the way, take a look at your shoes right now if you've got shoes. If when they're tied with a little bow, the bows, the loops of the bows go straight across very horizontally, you have your shoes tied right. If when they're tied, the bow is at a 30-ish degree angle, where the loops are, imagine the bow being the dog's ears. If the dog's ears are looking at, if the dog's ears were sticking straight out, which they don't, but they're like straight out, you're good. If they're on an angle, a 30, 40 degree angle, that means your knots aren't lined up and your shoes will come untied. So what you need to do is to reverse the first knot you do. It's a very important lesson, ladies and gentlemen. But seriously, in all things, there's these little things in life that are mastery. And tying shoes seems so darn basic, but no one has ever taught it. And metaphorically, it's so you can look it up on YouTube. I'm sure there's a couple of great videos. But metaphorically, many people don't know how to tie their shoes properly, which is true. That's why they come undone, and they shouldn't come undone. But many people do not know what being a great leader looks like. And in my book, we have another one, which is Stop Being Chief Problem Solver. And we look at the percentage of questions that you answer versus your team answers. So an ideal leader, I believe, only answers 10% of the questions that they are asked. That's the measure I use. Because otherwise, a manager is an answer, and even a mediocre manager answers too many questions. The great managers don't answer a lot. But if you're an answer dispenser, you're not making your people autonomous and independent. Yeah. So as a leader, you should almost never answer questions.
I did that myself. I did that myself. I realized that the hard way. There's an article, Who Got the Monkey? I think it's a HBR article. Who Got the Monkey? It's from the 1970s, and it's where the common phrase "get the monkey off your back" came from. It came from this HBR article. And I read that back in 15 years ago. And that was a catalyst for me to stop giving people answers. And the problem is that someone comes in and you go to the job interview and then you give them the job and you set them up at their desk and you say, all right, so if you've got any problems at all, just come and ask and I'll help you out. And then you keep doing that. And then you keep doing that. And then you keep doing that. And you keep giving them the answers and their brain never, ever clicks into gear that I've got to think for myself. So what their brain does is like, oh, okay, so I'm stuck. I'll go and ask Kevin and he'll give me the answer. So I flipped that. And then I said, I will only ever ask you questions, which is going back to what you said, which is you've got to be a coach to be a CEO.
Yes. And by the way, why do many of us fall into the trap answering questions? It's so validating. And let me tell you, I know the answer. I feel good when I answer questions, especially if you've got a great degree and you've studied. Like being an answer dispenser is wonderful for our ego and horrible for their development. Because the thing is, they already know the damn answer. The questions aren't that complex. They just either don't want to think or they want to delegate the risk of the decision up to you. Again, the opposite of what it takes to build strong, autonomous people.
Or the great one, look, I might as well just tell them myself rather than teach them. It's just going to be easier.
Way faster and easier. Yeah. Except for then you'll have to tell them the answer for the next 100 questions.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the idea. I mean, if you break this down, it's having the will.
Yeah.
You want to grow and learn, but more than it's getting the picture in your head that you're in the leader building business, not the decision-making business. And then really understanding that in every action you take, how do you help them to become strong, autonomous people? And I know as a parent, this has been controversial slightly with some people around me, but I get my kids doing their own things and I got them young. Like I've had my son doing business transactions and buying and selling stuff from when he was like 12. Yeah. We have extra stuff around the place that wanted to be sold. I'd get him to list it online, him to deal with people. They'd show up. The other day we were selling something and people show up and they're wanting to talk to me. I'm mute. He goes and negotiates with them and deals with it. But that's stepping back and letting them do their own things.
And I've had other parents look at me as if I'm irresponsible in those types of situations.
Yes. But it's interesting. I've had my kids doing things that other parents would believe are very dangerous, giving my kids massive amounts of responsibility in fairly risky situations very early on. But I want to expose them to responsibility, risk, thinking things through. And even when my son bought his car, he was 15 and he bought his first car and I helped pay for part of it. But he found it. He contacted the guy. He negotiated. He did the deal. I went with him to pick it up because he couldn't drive. But, at 15, he's making a, fairly, and it wasn't a $200 car. It was a very nice car. But getting him to do it all. And again, that's the mindset of a leader. I'm not saying I'm a perfect leader. Like I'm working on this stuff all the time. And I can slip down to, answering questions and getting into the details. But the intent, just like as a parent, is to build strong, autonomous people. Yeah. And I think if you have that in your mind, you make more of the right decisions, especially if you want to, and then you look at the feedback and look at how you can improve.
I think.
Is there anything else you'd like to add on this, Brad? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that people look at the C-suite or the corner office or the senior leaders' roles and they think that'd be good because I'd get more money, I'd get more power, I'd be able to tell people what to do, and I'd be able to do, make some really good decisions around here because these people have been making pretty crappy decisions. So I'd be able to make some good decisions for once around here. And maybe the only other thing is I'd be able to do the deals, like the deals would be good. But then what really happens is when you get into that role, you realize that all of that stuff, it's not about that. It's about growing the people around you. Not only that's the job to be done and you find that out the hard way and then you eventually do it. But, growing the people around you is ultimately the most rewarding thing, so much more than all of those other things. And then when leaders and people get to that, even if they're a manager or a supervisor or even a CEO, anywhere in that, it can just, I don't know, really help them. It can really make a big difference to them. And it's like they go, oh, this is what I'm here to do.
Yeah. And you need to be able to get the intrinsic reward from helping other people thrive instead of doing the glory work yourself. And if you take it back, and we'll kind of finish the thought of it on a football pitch, or what we would call soccer, you need to be excited about watching somebody else score the goals instead of scoring the goals yourself.
Yeah.
And that's at the root of it. And some people get into leadership roles thinking that they're going to get score goals. You don't. You only are on the sidelines helping other people. And you might be involved a little bit in the end of a negotiation on a deal or opening up something. But if you're over involved, that means you're just a high level manager, not really the best leader. And you do have to get involved sometimes. There is a 10% of the time you really got to be in there and hands on, but it should be rare.
Yeah. Awesome.
Well, that was fascinating. Some great conversations. We could talk about leaders forever, and I know it'll come up again. So thanks for listening. This has been the Growth Whisperers with Brad, and I'm Kevin. And, we love sharing the things we learned from these amazing companies that we get a chance to work with around the world. So if you want the video version of this, go to YouTube and search the Growth Whisperers. And to reach Brad, it's evolutionpartners.com.au. And for Kevin, that's me, lawrenceandco.com. You can find out more information. And we'll be back next week with another good conversation about things that seem to matter for those of us that want to build enduring great companies and enjoy the ride too. So thank you and have an awesome week.